Well, thanks very much for tuning in. It's great. This is going to be recorded so that it will be shown afterwards. So if you are watching this on the YouTube channel, leave a comment and let us know when you watched it, where you're dialing in from. But it's great to see so many of you tuned in here this evening for the annual general meeting 2023 of the EVA Association of Northern Ireland. We're also going to be having some interactive polls, so make sure that you're still all awake, etc. We'll be asking them throughout the evening. We've got a jam-packed evening. Really looking forward to the presentations that we've got coming up as well. We've over 40 in the rooms already, which is great to see. And we might start going through what the evening is going to hold for everybody. And so moving on to the next slide, I'm going to go through the agenda for this evening. And so it's going to be a welcome for myself, Derek Reilly. I am one of the committee members here at the EVA Association of Northern Ireland. I'm proud to be that as well. We're going to have the chairperson's report from Mark McCall. We're going to have a presentation from Thomas from Weev. We're going to have the treasurer's report with Rachel Reid. Presentation from Northern Ireland Electricity Networks with Cormac Bradley, membership report with Darren Henderson, and then I'm going to close it out. We're looking to have it all wrapped up within 60 minutes, so all tucked up in bed with our cocoa by 8:30. But so the meeting has been recorded, as we talked about already, and for any questions and answers, as I said, we'll feed them back to the hosts, whether it's after any presentations or whenever we ask for polls. You can jump into the chat, but you'll also see polls popping up throughout this event later on. I'm going to kick it off in about 30 seconds just to get everybody in. Otherwise, if you want to let us know where you're tuned in from, drop it into the chat. We'd love to know where all around we're getting viewers dialed in this evening into the Zoom. It's great to see so many members engaging with this. It's a pivotal point for electric vehicle adoption in Northern Ireland. We're starting to see a lot more rollout of infrastructure, which is great to see. Not so good to see the announcement on BBC News this evening about the potential push out of the petrol and diesel ban for 2030 for the United Kingdom, but we'll talk about that once we get a bit more detail. I'll now hand over to Mark McCall, who is our chairperson, to have his report on what's happened since the last AGM.
Thanks, Derek. Hopefully we'll have a few slides appear in a moment or two. Welcome everyone, and many thanks for joining us this evening. I have a few quick slides to run through, looking back at the last year, plus a few thoughts on the 12 months ahead. So let's start with the Department for Transport figures for 2022. These numbers include all EVs, so that's battery electric vehicles, plug-in hybrids, electric vans, etc. And it shows that there are around 14,500 plug-in vehicles here by the end of last year. So that's around 6,000 plug-in vehicles added to the fleet in 2022, and that's a 57% increase on the previous year. And in fact, it's more than all the EVs sold here in the previous 2 years combined. If we look at the next slide, the Department for Transport figures have started to lag behind quite a bit, so we're pleased to have been able to link up with an additional source of statistics now with New Automotive. So it's important to note that these figures are slightly different, as they only take into account full battery electric cars. So if you look at the second column from the right on pure electric there, this is their most recent data. And this table compares last month versus the same month in the previous year. And as you can see, shows a 46% increase in battery electric vehicle sales here for the month of August. So looking at our driver survey, which we completed last month, thanks to everyone that took part, just go through some of the headlines from the findings from that survey. 8 out of 10 drivers said they were satisfied or very satisfied with their EV range. 81.6% of NIE's of Northern Ireland's EV drivers said they will likely or definitely buy another EV next time, and just 1.7% said definitely no, which I think in the region that's known for having the poorest infrastructure is pretty remarkable. So in general, I would say that drivers are very satisfied with their EVs. More than 4 out of 10, in fact, probably nearing half of drivers attempt to use the public charging network at least once a month, and that's despite over 90% of our surveys saying that those drivers had charging facilities at home. So even if you can charge at home, obviously a public network still pretty vital. Purchase cost is now judged as the single biggest barrier to entry for EV ownership. That's risen from 35% last year to 51% this year, and it's taken over from public charging issues as the #1 issue. Last year, more than 2/3 said they had to wait very often or always for a charger, and this year that's fallen dramatically to under a quarter. Almost half of respondents, 48%, believe it's getting easier to get a public charge in Northern Ireland, and that compares to just 1.8 saying that in their 2022 survey. So big swings there in some opinions. And particularly those last few bullet points show that those swings are definitely taking place. And we think there are 2 clear reasons for that change. First of all, pay to charge was introduced by ESB on the 26th of April this year, and instantly resulted in a profound change in charger availability on that network. And I think that most drivers would agree that this was a very significant improvement. The second reason for that change is the increase in rapid numbers here. And we're now tracking more than 20 projects that are bringing public EV charging to Northern Ireland. Our summary page on the website is regularly updated, and that's the best place to keep up to date with these rollouts. I believe David or Mark will maybe post the link to that page into the chat. So drilling down into those rapid charger numbers and trying to quantify those, this graph shows the change over the last 12 months. Again, these are Department for Transport figures, and they show rapid chargers per 100,000 of population. And we've gone from a 1.1 to a 3.0. So it's really, in terms of numbers, that's 21 rapids here last July to 57 rapids this July. So a virtual tripling of these important devices. But while we've well and truly turned the corner, we cannot get complacent. If we take that 3.0 that we're at the moment and put it onto this new graph, and in terms of rapid charger comparisons, we're still at 1/4 the level of the GB average and less than 1/6 of Scotland. So in many ways, we are just at the start of this journey here with much more to do. This is the trend graph that we share regularly. It shows chargers of all speeds this time, and it gives a good trend view of the trend over time. That's Northern Ireland, obviously in yellow at the bottom, and you can see the start of an uptick, but we really need to look at Wales, the grey line, and how they've ramped up their trajectory with the raft of changes, including funding from the Welsh Government. We continue to work hard behind the scenes, focusing the vast majority of our resources to drive change here. Our association holds a unique overview of the issues here, and that comes from the width and depth of our stakeholder engagement. We've held over 180 meetings since our last AGM, and that includes meetings with the DFE Minister and the DFI Permanent Secretary. We also talked to DERA, OZEL, charge point operators, NIE Networks, and the utility regulator, amongst many, many others. Just in the last 7 days, we've held face-to-face meetings in Belfast with ESB, ODS, makers of Gully, and the CBI. We continue to hold a seat on the EV task force, and an action plan was released in November 2022. As we approach its first anniversary, only one of the 6 action points have been completed here, and DFI tells us that issues around both budgetary and staffing resources mean it's likely deadlines laid out in the plan will not be met. That document ends by saying the task force will, quote, review other key areas and bring forward further actions to be addressed, particularly in the area of charging for those without access to off-street parking. And if we look at the next slide, we agree that this is an important issue. And so as well as lobbying for improvements in public charging, we're also asking DFI to launch a trial here with Gully or Turbocharge or a similar solution to allow more residents without off-street parking to take advantage of the convenience and lower cost of charging at home. We believe these are very neat and practical solutions. And if we look at the next slide, they certainly look much better than many of the drains that already exist on our pavement today. We have also successfully lobbied for second green spaces to be added at multiple council sites, and DFI on-street locations are finally starting too. This simple action has effectively doubled the number of available chargers at these locations, and so it's been a very worthwhile project for the association too. So then, looking at the future, there are two pieces of legislation that will help to drive more change here over the next 12 months. Well, that was until the breaking news about 90 minutes ago. Before that, the ZEV mandate had looked set to come into law next month to set levels for BEV sales from next year out to 2035. But incredibly, that seems in doubt if the latest leaks are true. However, we also have our own Climate Change Act now, and this will ignite progress here. And the Climate Change Committee's recent advice report to Northern Ireland lists 8 near-term actions that are required here. Number 2 on that list states that, quote, new electric car sales were 10% in 2021. In the next decade, this needs to scale up to all new cars and vans being zero emissions, underpinned by major investment to expand the electric vehicle charging infrastructure. The public consultation for the new transport strategy for Northern Ireland is due before the end of this year, and we also hope this document will finally take on board some of that CCC advice on the electrification of transport here. As ever, we point to DFI's own travel survey, which is in this slide. It shows that cycling makes up around 1% of miles travelled here, and all public transport makes up around 3%. While there will certainly be some modal shift, and we encourage active travel on public transport where practical, it's clear the car will remain vital for many for decades to come. Decarbonising that 84% of miles travelled by accelerating the transition to electric vehicles should be one of the main focuses of transport policy here. We have almost doubled our corporate members since our last AGM, and Darren will give us an update on that a bit later on. But a huge thanks to those companies for the financial and practical support over the last 12 months. Thanks also to our individual members, to my fellow directors, and to our committee for all their help and support over the last year too. And on to the final slide. I think it's very important that we are representing your views, so please get in touch and let us know if there are any other specific issues you feel we should be looking at. So thank you all again, and with that, it's back to you, Derek.
Thank you, Mark. Excellent to see those numbers moving up and to the right, as always. We're going to have a little poll now, folks, before we head into our first presentation. So if my Debbie McGee, as I like to call him, Darren, will bring up that's a certain vintage of people now that will get that joke. Not a lot of people would know what that is. So the poll is, what areas should the EV Association of Northern Ireland focus on next? It's a lot of progress done across different areas that the committees have focused on. The EV Association of Northern Ireland pushed hard for the ESB to implement pay to charge. This, as well as lobbying the Northern Ireland government, civil service for better EV charging infrastructure, has been the main focus of the organisation. Now pay to charge has been implemented. What other areas do you think should the EV Association focus on? On-street public charging for residential areas, crossing the pavement scheme trial for private on-street charging in residential areas, workplace charging, general promotion of electric vehicles to non-EV drivers, combating incorrect EV stories in the local media, the wider electricity supply lobbying for smart meters and flexible tariffs, and other. Please add suggestions into the Zoom chat. So if you have any questions, any other ideas, make sure you're using that Zoom chat for anybody that is able to pop them in. We haven't had any questions yet, so we're not scared of them. So what areas should the EV Association of Northern Ireland focus on next? Only 2 people have voted so far. Sorry, 6, 3, 9. We're going to give that another 30 seconds before we bring in our next presentation, which is from Thomas O'Hagan from Weev. My camera is off, I've been told. There we are, frozen. Even better. I'll get this sorted by the next time 31 of 33 people have voted. Thank you very much. I'm now going to hand over to Thomas O'Hagan from Weev to give a presentation, and I'm going to try and fix my camera. Thanks.
Evening, everyone, and thanks to EVA for inviting us along this evening to give a presentation on Weev. suppose it's the first opportunity we've had since we launched into the market, really to present to the members, and we do get engagement from the EVA NIE team, and we try and support them as much as we can through the year, and answering questions and kind of attending various groups and CBA working groups, etc., with the guys. So it's a great organization and a great help to the industry. You click on there, Darren. So to suppose a bit of background on ourselves, really. Obviously we know about Northern Ireland being an underserved market, and again that is, I suppose, why Weev has come into existence, to try and address that. And what we've seen from Mark's stats, that the growth in the EV sales in August of circa 50% there, but that's a huge growth, and it's great to see. From our own perspective, when we look at the market and what we have come before us in the market, the network here has had its issues. When we looked at what we want to build a reliable network, or a network that people can trust, that they know when they get to a charge point that they're going to get a charge. And that's been a huge part of ourselves. Again, that's also backed up by our team based here in Belfast, and that team is here to support our customers, be that our engineering resources, our customer services, our account managers, our billing managers, and the whole team based in Belfast is here really to support and grow that network, grow our customers, and give our customers the confidence that if they do get into issues and things happen from time to time, that there's somebody there at the end of the phone to help and support them. From our commercial models, again, we'll maybe touch more on this in a second. We will fund all of the installations at location partners. So again, EV charging and all the talk around grid and costs around that, with our recent investment by Octopus, has allowed us really to catapult ourselves forward and to really drive that network. So again, from a location perspective of partners, that we have the funds and we have the backers there that allow us to really drive the network forward. And again, as part of what we do as well, we want to promote EVs. We want to make sure the adoption is there. One of the campaigns that we're doing with one of the local sort of school quiz programs, again, when we looked at this and they came to us about the road safety around, if anybody's remembered the Stop, Look and Listen campaigns from school, we realized that the listen wasn't actually a thing with EVs because they're silent. So again, we're launching the Stop, Look and Look campaign with the schools and the quizzes that they're doing there. Click on there, Mark. Another piece that we've just launched recently, which we're really passionate about, is our Not Feeling Fully Charged campaign. So all of our public EV charge points will have the QR codes from our charity partner PIPS, and one part of that will be that if anybody needs access to the PIP services or support, that they'll be able to access that at any of our charge points. And also anybody who is charging at a charge point, I would encourage them to provide a donation to PIPS. It's a great charity, and I'm sure it's touched many people on the presentation this evening. So again, that's something we're really passionate about giving back and working within our communities as we build out the network. So at Weev, obviously the bits that we see and are on the press more so is really around the public charging network and the stuff that we're all really passionate about, getting more rapid chargers, more charge points onto the network. But at Weev, we're actually supporting our customers on that entire journey and on that entire piece. Be that at a home charger and that they're choosing the right charger. If we support the local dealer network here, we actually go out and provide training to the dealerships, to their sales staff. What's a 7 kilowatt, what's a DC, what's a rapid, and that's really to make sure at the point of sale that a customer is getting the right experience and is able to ask the right questions to a dealer, and that they're able to provide that. And we also offer a home installation service with free network credit. It really provides that bridge and that gap that a consumer purchasing a vehicle has somewhere to go, can come to ourselves, and our team will provide them also the charger to get them going, but also then really that network credit, get them access to the app, and make sure that when they're getting their vehicle or considering their vehicle, that they have that entire journey. We do around 80% of all charging from the surveys done at home, so that is an important piece, but it's that 20% that we're really here to fill and make sure customers know that there is options out there when they are going on their journeys, that they have access to a network. Again, with our workplace customers, it's the same idea that we're supporting the corporations and companies and small businesses really to be able to install charge points at their offices, at their depots, again, so that they can make that switch to EV with confidence. And that is everything that we're about at Weev, is making sure consumers have the confidence, the right tools, the right access to our network, as well as the charge points that at the places that they need them. The uptime of our network and confidence, again, in our customers and consumers and companies that are able to make that switch to EV. It's for too long the network has been sort of had such bad press around not being available, and some of that was that wasn't available due to people maybe hogging chargers and stuff. But now that the network has opened up and the chargers are available, there's still that issue with chargers just not working when they arrive at them. So some things that are really important to us, and when we're setting up the business and getting all of the tools in place that are needed to run a reliable network. Uptime is a huge part of what we do. Again, the new regulations coming out are going to mandate that we need to have 99% uptime. That's been our target from the start. That's supported by our local engineers. Our vans are on the road and our cars are on the road, making sure that if there's a charge point down, the alerts are coming into our system and we're reacting to those. Again, and also offering that 24/7, 365 support to our customers at the point of charge. If they have an issue, if they can't get started, maybe, and a lot of times they may be new to the network, it might be the first time they've had to use the public network. So offering them that sort of support at that point in time is really important to make sure that they get that first successful charge and then can come back and have, again, that confidence to go on long journeys. And that's all backed up by our back office systems, our technology. That's a real differentiator in our business, that everything's, all the automations, all of the connectivity, all of the alerting comes into our back office, and our team then are able to react and to make sure that the network is reliable and up for our customers. Some of the, so how this all sort of comes together, the hardware, I'm sure if anybody's using a network, you'll be familiar with the charge points that we have on the network, again ranging from our 7/11 kilowatt AC right up to our 150 kilowatt DC. And again, depending on location, depending on power availability, depending on the use of the charger, we will then decide on the best charger configuration for a station or location. Those charge points then connect into our back office, and then that in turn then allows that to be presented to our customers through their various payment methods, be that via the app, which is probably very popular. Also, customers can order a fob through the app. We have our Weev business account for companies that want to be able to have multiple fobs, be able to do a post-pay scenario. And then we're also in final launch of our payder system, which is going to allow customers then to do tap and charge with their credit card on the network as well. So that's something that'll be available across our network now shortly as well. Again, for anybody that's kind of new to the charging space, it's probably my favorite slide when I'm presenting to customers, is that sort of speed of charging, and maybe translating that for them into the miles per hour. Really, what from a consumer's perspective, that's the most important thing. And how many, if I'm sitting at a station, for how long is it going to be that I have to sit here to go on my onward journey? What we're seeing across the network is probably 100 miles an hour seems to be, 100 miles, sorry, of range is what people tend to be sitting for and taking, and then that translates back into time. So again, the 24 kilowatt DC, I think, is going to be discussed later as well. And again, that's been something that we've put into the network to allow that consistency of charge, that when somebody pulls up to a lower powered station, they know that they're going to go away with a consistent speed. It's often talked about, and I thought this slide was actually important. It's often talked about the grid and the time to grid and all of the conversations around grid, which NIE Networks will be on discussing later on. But there's a lot goes into getting a station live that maybe doesn't get seen in the background from our own technical teams out doing feasibility studies on locations, or account managers out speaking with customers, trying to get agreements in place with customers. That then coming into our own business to say, right, is this a location that we will invest in? Getting a customer then and agreed on the commercials, and then at that stage you're really involving the grid. So there's a lot of work from a Weev perspective that goes into getting a station, even to the point of starting with NIE, which is really important that we have invested that time. Our team are out and we're getting new inquiries coming through daily, and our team are out meeting with those customers. So there's a lot of stuff that we probably can't talk about this evening, but again, there's a lot of stuff in that place where we're out meeting with customers. Proposals are there. It's been passed by the internal investment committees, and we're moving forward with customers, and we have a lot of connections in with NIE that are going through their system and process as well. Once we come out the far side of that, then we're in getting a lease agreement, moving to installation, and getting the site ready and live for customers. So that's part of the ecosystem. I think the grid's talked about quite a bit as being one point of it, but there's a lot of work goes on even before and after that point to get a station live. So I suppose on to the network piece. That's been our journey. With our first station was launched in July last year only, and since that we've over 30 locations live. We've recently got backing from Octopus, who share our vision in creating the most extensive and best charging network in NI, and that was a real important piece as we went round on the investment journey and finding that investment partner that really believed in what we do and kind of comes from the same ethos of a customer first, technology driven background, and Octopus was the perfect partner for that. With the investment, we're aiming to have at least one new location live every week, and that's something that we're really driving forward and driving through. Another part what we've done is, hopefully some of you have noticed, some of the early installations that we had done was almost following what was there before in a way, and the 22 kilowatt posts. We noticed that a lot of our 24 DCs were getting very popular. So we actually went round and done an upgrade program on 5 locations, which upgraded the 22 kilowatt posts up to 24 kilowatt DCs. And we can see the utilization has followed that, and it's a very popular unit. And I suppose it does what it says in the tin as far as speed as well. The efficiency of them is great. And we're currently engaged with some of our other location partners as well about actually expanding their locations. And that's, some of it is to expand the amount of chargers because the demand on the chargers themselves is very high. And other sites we're actually able to look at doing some grid upgrades and to actually increase the power at those locations. So hopefully we'll be able to announce some of those soon and get some live actually before Christmas, hopefully. What's coming soon, hopefully you'll start to see our marketing team now is pushing out sites that are coming live on the network, and we're trying to get that out. It's just to show people what is coming. The recent win that we have had in the border regions is an important win for us as a business and for our customers. So again, it's in the border regions, it's the places that we all travel for potentially business or leisure or shopping or whatever that may be. So it allows our Weev customers when they're heading across the border that they can access the network as well. And equally for our newly acquired customers in the border regions, that's when they're coming into Northern Ireland, that they have the Weev app and they can access the charge points as they would on their sort of home networks. We're assessing that the recent EVA survey results on the key locations that yourselves have put forward as where you want to see charge points, and I think you'd be glad to hear it. It's actually largely in line with what we have in the pipeline and sites that are coming online. Just to announce this week, I think we have 2 more rapids coming on the network live this week. Both are built, both are ready to be commissioned, one in Belfast and one in Dungiven. And we have another site, Killyhaven Hotel, coming live with some AC points as well this week. So there'll be three new locations on the network this week. And we're always welcoming any new location partners, site owners, any suggestions that will you can ping them through to us at hello@weev.ie, and we will go and assess them or come out and do a feasibility study. So rapid hubs is the key focus. That's the key focus for us as a business, either later this year or early in next year, depending on when the capacity comes through. We have the planning application submitted for a 500 kilowatt rapid hub just outside Port Stewart. We're hoping that comes through soon. Again, we've been working very closely with the key stakeholders involved in that, DFI, environmental health, and all of the organisations there that have an interest. We're answering the questions as they come through. So hopefully that's not going to be too far away. We have a lot of other locations that are in the system that are going to come through and are going to provide a similar capacity. And again, I hope to feed those through to the EVA NIE team and yourselves as they come live or become available or coming through the planning system. Other solutions that we're looking at is battery tech. We're looking at some battery technology that will allow us to move quicker, allow us to get some ultra rapid charging into the network quicker while we wait on the connections coming through or whatever that may be. So again, that's something that we're working on, and once we have more information on that, we hope to bring yourselves along on that journey with us to test, to give us feedback that we know from the pilot scheme that's something that we can roll out and make much larger part of the network. So anything for me, folks. So thank you very much again for the invite this evening. Apologies for the camera mishap. I'm not sure what's happening on Zoom this evening, but again, I welcome any questions in the chat or after, and the guys can feed those back to me and I can come back after.
Thanks very much, Thomas. Don't worry about it. We don't mind the colour. It's great to see the expansion of Weev and the rollout across the border as well. So it's great to see it. And if you have any questions for Thomas and the Weev, make sure you jump it into the Q&A there and we can ask it. I want to bring the results from their first poll, which is come back. Give me 2 seconds and we'll share the results. So the number one choice by 35% of the participants was wider electricity supply lobbying for smart meters and flexible tariffs. So it's great that we've got Cormac here coming on for his presentation from NIE Networks in a little bit. So hopefully you can talk to that. But I know we're looking across at the European continent and we can see smart tariffs, people being rewarded for charging off peak, etc., surge pricing, whether that will work for you or against you, but it's definitely something as EV drivers we're interested in. Also, you can see people interested in crossing the pavement schemes and wider and on-street public charging. I'm sure Thomas and Weev and other network operators, charge point operators will be interested in that in residential areas. Not everybody has off-street parking or can park outside their residence. So lots of things there, and we'll definitely take that on board. So thank you very much for those who participated in that poll number one. We have a second poll now after Thomas's, and as he alluded to, and I noticed it for the first time when I stayed up and just outside Belfast, and there was the DC 24 kilowatt, which was I was very excited to see because I haven't seen that anywhere else. So we have presented tonight and are leading the idea into Northern Ireland to replace sites with 22 kilowatt AC units with 24 kilowatt DC units. Do you prefer 24 kilowatt DC units to the 22 kilowatt AC units? And so which do you prefer? The question or the options that you have: yes, this is a great idea, DC all the way, direct current all the way. No, I prefer 22 kilowatt AC units. This is very site dependent is another option. DC now, but as the network develops, some should switch back to AC. I'm frozen again. I can see. Let me turn on my camera. And other, please add in the suggestions section. So we're zipping up through the different participants, so it's great to see it. We have 22%, sorry, 22 of 33 people, 72% have participated. So I'll give it another couple of seconds as I'm frozen there on screen. Phenomenal. It looks like it's DC all the way. Everybody prefers a quick splash and dash. And I think, yeah, if we've got the infrastructure there for a 22 kilowatt AC, I think a lot of people would prefer that 24 kilowatt DC, or as Thomas likes to call it, 25 kilowatt. But yeah, the utilization rate of it being nearly at peak charge all the time is great to see. So thank you everybody that participated in that poll. So moving on next, we have our Treasurer's Report, which is Rachel. And Rachel, I'll hand over to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed, Derek. And good evening, everybody. You'll be pleased to hear I've only got one slide and it's coming up now. Thanks due to our accountants, G McGee and Lisburn, for the annual report and the financial statement. And as you see on the screen now, it's a snapshot of our financial position as at the 31st of March 2023. So our income for the year 22-23 was £4,369, which was from mainly corporate and individual membership subscriptions. So thank you to all of our members. And as Mark said earlier, Darren's going to be providing further information on membership later on. As you can see, our expenses were fairly modest, £2,533, with the biggest spend being on marketing materials. And as at the 31st of March, we were left with an operating surplus of £1,836. Now, we are seeking to engage a company during this financial year to help with membership growth and promotion, and we anticipate that that will use up some of our cash reserves. If everyone is happy, I presume that we can now sign off and register the annual reports and accounts and file the tax return. Thank you very much, and back to Derek.
Thank you, Rachel. I'm still having camera issues here. Oh, I'm back. Excellent. If anybody has any questions about the budgets and the financials report that Rachel shared there, please drop it into the comments. We also are going to share the results on the which do you prefer now as well. I'm keeping Darren busy. Darren, if you can share the results, which would be great. From the Zoom, and as I suspected, 86% of people are preferring that DC this is a great idea. DC all the way is what we're hearing from the majority of people here. Some people are also saying, 11% of people are also saying it's very site dependent, which is obviously smart as well. And DC now, but as the network develops, some should switch back to AC. For some reason I can't say that. So that is the results of poll number 2. I do believe we have another poll now after Rachel's report as well. We're going to keep everybody busy and engaged, just in case you're watching EastEnders or Coronation Street. And poll number is the Northern Ireland Electricity Networks Intelligent Charging Trial. The NIE are about to present their up-and-coming intelligent charging trial. Would you be willing to let the network take control of when your car charges from the moment it is plugged in until you next need it? Options are no, never. Option number 2, maybe if it helps the network. Number 3, yes, as long as it costs me no more. Number 4, yes, but only if the costs are reduced. So there needs to be an incentives there. And 5 is if you've got any other suggestions. So just lining all this up before we have our next speaker, Cormac. So intelligent charging trial. Nearly everybody has participated, which is great to see. And we're going to share these results after Cormac's presentation. So moving over to presentation on the intelligent charging from Cormac Bradley. Cormac, I'll hand over to you.
Hi, folks. I hope you can all hear me now. So, look, really appreciate the opportunity to speak this evening, Mark and the EVA NIE committee. And really interesting just to kick off this presentation with that poll. It could really make or break this the next 10 minutes. So I suppose starting off, I'll introduce myself and Northern Ireland Electricity Networks, and then I'll step through what is a smart and flexible system or a vision for the future, and then jump into our trial that we're I suppose giving you a bit of a preview this evening. We're not quite ready to go public as yet, but we couldn't turn down the opportunity. So if we just tip on to the next slide now. So Northern Ireland Electricity Networks, we own the electricity network from the terminals of the power stations and wind farms through to really the meter and the cutout in your home and everything in between, the substations, the overhead lines, the cables. We don't own the power stations, we don't generate electricity, and we don't bill you for electricity as well. So it is important to understand that we're very much focused on the network, maintaining it, building it, and certainly, as Thomas mentioned a number of times, connecting new customers to it, whether that be homes, businesses, farms, renewable generation, batteries, and in particular EV charge points. So we're really going through we're on the edge of a massive transition for the electricity system, and we're currently already sitting at 40% of our, well, actually over 40% of our energy that comes from indigenous or local renewable source. But the Northern Ireland electricity or the energy strategy set an expectation or an ambition that will be 80% by the end of this decade. So it's taken us more than 20 years to get to 40%, and we're now 6 or 7 years left in this decade to double that. On the demand side, we think, well, we're expecting the number of EVs to increase rapidly, although interesting to see the outcomes of what Rishi has to say. Networks, we have, over the last 2 years, been preparing our business plan. We're regulated by a utility regulator for Northern Ireland, and every 5, 6, 7 years, we put together a plan for what we want to spend or invest in network and on our systems and our people. And we've just submitted that to the regulator back in March. Now, by 2030 or 2031, we expect that the network will have to host 300,000 electric vehicles and potentially 120,000 new heat pumps, a massive increase in demand on our network. To meet this demand and to achieve our increased renewable consumption, we're going to have to effectively double the generation connected to our network. So going from 1.8 to about 3.9 gigawatts. And to do this, we think we're going to need to invest about £3 billion. So about 3 times the equivalent in our previous price control. To do this, it's not just copper in the ground and pounds being spent, but we need people. And we're going to be creating in the region of 1,000 new jobs between now and 2030. So a huge opportunity, but also a huge challenge for us to get the skills and the resources that we need. From my perspective, so I'm in charge of our innovation team in Northern Ireland Electricity Networks, and as part of this price control, we're looking to significantly increase our expenditure or investment in innovation, and we're proposing a £20 million investment split between defined projects and a network innovation fund. So, you know, a huge change or time for change is also an organization. On the next slide, what is a flexible, resilient, and integrated energy system? So the energy system is really now the new vector, or the electricity system is the new vector to decarbonize transport, heat, and industry. So things that really took care of themselves beforehand. And we recognize that we can't continue to just build and build and build the network, that we have to operate and deliver more actively to manage the complex power flows that are going to be on our network. We have to facilitate and utilize markets, so which maximizes customers' revenues and their ability to participate in the energy transition, to democratize the energy transition, some might say. And finally, to collaborate and jointly plan with other energy system partners and stakeholders. So that's everyone from local councils and central government, developers, renewable stakeholders, EV charge point developers, and everyone else, so we can bring forward a coordinated and collaborative energy system plan. Moving on to the next slide. So what is flexibility? And it's probably one of the most overused words this decade already. But what do we mean? So really, it's a customer's ability to change their energy generation or consumption in reaction to some sort of signal, and that might provide a service to themselves or to the energy system. And for us, this is potentially very powerful. It means that rather than building out new network assets to cope with increasing or incremental load growth and or growth in demand. Actually, can we tackle the cause of that? Can we actually reduce demand at those peak times so that we can avoid the reinforcement, avoid the expenditure and disruption that can cause to customers, and reward our customers? And we have successfully done this, we think, with large industrial and commercial customers. They have been providing us as part of our previous or flex pilot with many megawatts of flexibility, and they've been providing it to the transmission system operator and Sony as well. But we recognize that EVs and domestic participation is slightly different. And on the next slide, we'll introduce the Northern Ireland Intelligent EV Charging Project. A slight, it's a bit of a mouthful at the moment, but it's a £1.7 million project funded by the utility regulator. We kicked it off in January 2023, so at the start of this year, and we really expect it to run its course through until September of 2025. Its main objectives are to demonstrate the effectiveness of flexibility in EV charging. So can it work, can it be done, and can it be used in a way that actually is useful for the network and for system operators? To understand EV drivers' perceptions, their willingness to participate, and their experience of EV flexibility, and then to develop the initial technical, commercial, and regulatory framework to enable this to not just be done in a pilot, but to scale this up so that many hundreds of thousands of customers and many megawatts of flexibility can be done. So moving on to the next slide, what do we mean for flexibility in EV drivers? And Mark, I pinched a few figures from your EVA or the survey. I really appreciate it, and it's a treasure trove of information. So 84.5% of EV drivers charge at home, and 82% have a 7 kilowatt charger. But we also see that less than 20% charge every day, and while less than 60% charge or in around 60% charge several times a week. We also know, and although we haven't actually been able to pin down a specific number, and if anybody wants to enlighten me, I'd be thrilled about it, but we know that a large number of EV drivers utilize Economy 7 tariffs, or whatever the variant of it is provided by your energy supplier. And that's a form of flexibility. You're modifying your charging in a way to, well, ultimately is to save you money, but that also provides the energy system as a whole as a service. It moves charging away from peak periods for the network, for peak generation of the tea time peak, and moves it into a time of day or night where there's cheaper marginal generation available and there's greater network capacity. So implicitly, customers are already doing this. But drilling down into this further, we can do more. So I'm seeing a few questions, and I'll probably, sorry if we can just pop back to the last slide. What do we mean, or what is the flexible potential of an EV? So we've roughly boiled it down to it's really the ratio between how long you're plugged in to how long you actually need to charge. So if you are plugged in for 8 hours and you have to charge for 8 hours, you're going from 0 to a full battery. Your potential to be flexible is pretty limited. It's low. Whereas if you're plugged in for 8, 10, 12 hours and you only need to charge for 2 or 3, that's a huge potential window where charging can be moved around, and hopefully it will have no impact on yourself, the driver, but could deliver a great service for the network, for the overall energy system. It could be used to soak up available renewable generation. And just to put that in a graph on the next slide, what does that mean? So breaking this up, moving this bulk charging as soon as, and what you'll see here is the Economy 7 window coming on. So I think the winter hours are from 1 to 8 a.m. So I would hedge a bet that a lot of people here have their charge point through some sort of app configured to come on during this window. But actually doesn't need to come on at 1 a.m. Could have come on at 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m., whilst making sure that you still fulfill your state of charge needs or your battery requirements by the end. On the next slide, we'll show the situation where if everybody responds or charges at the same time, and yeah, Darren, if you're driving, perfect. This is what happens. We know that we lose this diversity in behavior. Customers like yourselves are all responding to the same price signal. 1 a.m. has come, it's time to charge. That's great, it's cheap for me, but that's not great for the network. Everyone comes on at the same time, potentially blows the fuses at the top of the street, or drives investment, large capital investment in new substations, new transformers, new overhead lines, which people don't want to pay for and are quite, or can be quite disruptive. So really, can we move this charging around? And if we skip to the next slide, still delivering everybody's charging requirements, but really reducing that strain on the network. So that's the underlying goal of this project. We don't want to make it any more complicated than it needs to be. But on the next slide, really, you, the driver, is in the heart of this. And we've been thinking about this, but we have much more by the way of engagement to go on our project. But it's really a hierarchy of needs. And at the bottom, we have Zoom, and please drop in any comments into the chat if you've anything else, if you think we've maybe misinterpreted or misordered some of these. But state of charge, ready by time is critical. I need to get where I need to be tomorrow or later on this week, and it's this far away, and this is the charging infrastructure that's available. And we're not disputing that. The next thing is in terms of how cost effectively can that be done for me? Can I do all that charging in a cheaper period? What supplier or tariff is my supplier offering to me? Is it cheaper to charge at 6 a.m. or 6 p.m., midday or midnight? And I suppose what I'd add to that is, what else is going on in the home? Do I have solar? Do I have batteries can I maximize self-consumption? Once we've established that, then what about the grid? And for a lot of this, people simply don't know. You don't have the signals or the information to respond. And the question for us is, if you had, would you? So the wholesale energy price, what's happening there, balancing and constraint and stability services. And finally, societal. So is the wind blowing now? What's the carbon intensity of those units that I'm consuming? And I think what's probably missing from this slide, but is layered in somewhere, is convenience. We don't want to make anybody's life a bit more difficult than it needs to be. We want to make sure that nobody has to get up in the middle of the night to turn on a charger or to click a button on an app. But that is really the hierarchy of needs. I think I'm pushing on the clock, so I'm going to jump 2 slides really to my last one. And just for the overall time, yeah, if we just push on to the last one. So the project overview, I mentioned that we kicked off at the start of 2023. You guys are getting a bit of a preview, but we're hopefully going to go out and begin to properly engage with the public to begin to recruit participants at the start of 2024, and then really kick off our trials and run between April 2024 and 2025, and sharing all the results and keeping everyone up to date as we go along. So look, that is it for me. Apologies, I've run over time, and I think I did see some really interesting questions coming into the chat there, but we'll take a bit of advice on how best to address them.
Thank you, Cormac. That was excellent and really interesting to see the project, number one, but also that it's not going to inconvenience any of the EV drivers that are willing to jump into it. I know Darren has the results of the last poll, but also if we don't get to the questions tonight, Cormac, what we'll do is we'll definitely pass them on to you and then give your answers back to the committee members, and sorry, all of members. So we definitely want to make sure that anybody that's engaged in the Q&A. So what we're going to do now is we're going to share the results of the last poll, and it was 48% yes, but only if my costs are reduced, Cormac. So people are conscious about it. But just behind that, we also have yes, as long as it costs me no more. So cost neutral, but also some people like a little reward for their participation as well. And then we had 19% of people say maybe if it helps the network. And so there are some good souls out there as well that want to help out the actual network. And I think, as you say, as this adoption of EV electric vehicles, but also the electrification of our home heating and everything else is going to need to that balancing on the grid. The infrastructure, we don't need always to upgrade infrastructure if we just are smart about how we utilize it and how we get around and doing it. I believe we have another poll before we kick into our membership report with Darren. And the poll is intelligent charging rewards. After hearing the NIE Introduction to Intelligent Charging trial, how would you like to be rewarded if you were involved in such a scheme, trial or commercial? Option number 1, cheaper rates during managed charging events. Number 2, credit that can be redeemed against public charging. Number 3, discount on your electricity bill. Number 4, annual payment that may be plugged in, apologies. So an actual payment to the end user. And number 5, any other suggestions into the Zoom Q&A. And so we have 17 people of 18, 19, 20. We're zipping into it here now, folks. Looks to be a clear winner of cheaper rates during managed charging events. So I think it's Cormac, you're unmuted there as well. I think you can give your feedback on that.
Yeah, well, look, I'm not surprised that was the decision there, but also really that initial insight in terms of people willing to help the grid and if it's not putting people out of their way, people are still getting their state of charge as they require, that actually maybe it's a service that could be, I don't know how best to describe it, but for the greater good, effectively.
Yeah.
And of course everybody will be rewarded through the reduced network investment that does make its way into people's bills.
It rolls downhill. Cormac, thank you very much for your presentation, and best of luck with the trial. I'm sure lots of people on here are going to be interested to find out how they can sign up to it, and I'm sure that we'll start to spread that information throughout the membership. Thanks again. I'm now going to hand over to the membership report with Darren Henderson, please.
So if I push the right button. So just a reminder, EVA NIE official membership opened up on the 25th of August 2021, so just over 2 years ago. The total official EVA NIE members is 495. That's people who are members on our website, as opposed to Facebook and Twitter and things like that, but actually have officially signed up as either an associate or a full member. That's a 72% increase from 2022, so thanks for that. In the breakdown of that, there's 3 tiers. There's full members. It's 206 currently, up 23% from 22. Associate members, which is actually our real drive there, which is the free tier, 265, which is up 150% from 2022, which is great to see. And then corporate members, as Mark alluded to at the start, we're up 84% there to 24 corporate members, which is very, very good to see, and a great spread of stakeholders there. By way of comparison to Facebook and Twitter, our Facebook membership is 2,600. Approximately, it kind of fluctuates a little bit, so it's approximately 2,600 at this point, which is 40% up from 2022. And our Twitter followers, interestingly, slightly lower. I don't know what may have changed there, but 29% up at 3,100 from 2022. One of the items that we said was a focus for our committee activities was to try and convert the large number that we have on Facebook, which is represented by the blue line on this graph, into actual members, because that's really important for us whenever we're engaging with stakeholders. They can see the Facebook members and see the Twitter members, which is very good, but actually people signed up that we can engage with, we can send out newsletters to. That's a very important fact. So whenever we started, we were about 5%. At the AGM last year, we were 15% of our actual members, and that has grown to 18%. So we want to continue to try and grow that and get as many people as possible signed up as the associate, the free member tier on EVA NIE website. That will really help us with our stakeholder engagement. On the final slide, as I said, the more official members we have, the more engagement we have with stakeholders, and our focus from the committee will be to try and convert those. We'll also want to do more members meetings, so we're going to organise more member-only meetings as well as general public meetings, and also grow the benefits of membership. This is something we've been trying to do for a while. We just haven't had the capacity to do that, but there is a number of companies lining up to offer some benefits of being a member of EVA and Weev. That one of the speakers on here are one of those that will offer benefits for the membership, and that should help convert people in. And then public meetings, as I say, as well as the member meetings, we're looking to organise some more public meetings and spread the word of EVs and the positive side of things there. So that's the slides about membership. I don't know if there was any other questions, or we hand back to Derek for the last.
Darren. Last poll before we wrap it up, folks. We're a couple of minutes over, so apologies, but we'll just run one more poll. And that poll is coming very quickly to you. How did you purchase your EV? Number one, public sector employee purchased on a salary sacrifice scheme. Public sector employee but purchased or leased privately. Public company employee purchased on a salary sacrifice. Private company employee purchased leased privately, and I received my EV through the Mobility NI scheme. And other, a big bag of cash is not one of the options, but you can put it into the comments there. So how did you purchase your EV? Just so we understand the ownership breakdown of the people on the call here this evening. Thank you, Darren, for that. We definitely, like Rachel was saying, with regards to the membership, that presentation you gave, we're going to be engaging with an organisation to help grow that associate and above membership, because we definitely want to be the representative body for all EV drivers in Northern Ireland. So we have 21 of 30 people have participated in this. And at the front is private company employee purchased and leased or leased privately. So was at 43%. Coming in at a close second is between public sector employee and also then jumping around here, other. And I've got stuff coming into the Zoom, I believe, if people have filled in their chats. Nearly everybody. And I'm going to ask Darren or any of my other co-hosts who have visibility on the chats, have we got any questions or before we wrap up? I don't want to keep people any longer than we need to. Before I go, Cormac, you had a couple of questions directly to yourself as well. If you've got any of those questions, we're going to unmute you here and there now. Give us 2 seconds. Are any of the questions for Thomas as well from Weev?
So I picked up one here about smart meters, well, two. One being, will smart meters allow us to get an agile tariff in Northern Ireland where we pay different rates every half an hour? And then, well, the first part of that is, and Mark McCall, maybe if you want to pass comment on that one, but understand that the Department for Economy has published their smart meter cost benefit analysis, and for electricity it looks positive. So they have commenced their preparation or their planning for an implementation plan, which is really positive. You know, smart metering is not a metering project, it's a smart energy system initiative, and so it has to be matched with the smart flexible energy system tariffs or electricity tariffs. So you know, we'll be very, very strong advocates of that. You know, if we spend a huge amount of money deploying smart meters into everybody's homes and we end up with nothing more than Economy 7, then it'll be, you know, failed to deliver its ambition. So yes, strongly agree. And I think the question for us as a networks company, that makes sense from an energy system perspective, but how can we get the network signals in there, which might be really local? Second part, exporting back to the grid at peak times to assist. So yes, that's the next step in this. So if we can get people to reduce demand, first of all, then exporting straight after. I see someone has asked specifically about a smart meter pilot that we have on at the moment. So 2 components as well. So there's a meter that goes on the wall, which is usually outside people's homes, and then we have made available in-home displays to show people their consumption.
Nice.
Typically it's a Bluetooth communication or low power radio. So, you know, if you're having difficulties, the first protocol is going to be to bring it closer to the device. But if you continue to have any difficulties, please email Future Networks, all one word, at nienetworks.co.uk. Yeah, look, there are some challenges with that, and that type of experience is hopefully something that will feed into the wider smart meter plan as well.
Perfect. Are smart meters allowing people to switch to agile tariffs in the, oh, somebody's asking me in the south, we haven't any agile tariffs down here yet. There is a big push to go away from day and night meters to smart meters. So there's a big push actually happening over the coming days down here. So it's interesting to watch the different jurisdictions and see what's happening. I'm sure Cormac is doing the same, looking across at us to see what we're doing, but also across at the mainland. Any other questions, Darren, or any of my co-hosts, or are we all good to wrap up?
Yeah, just a few questions there, just about individual locations that are coming through. So again, I've give those responses back to Darren, and we'll be announcing those to the individuals. And somebody asked, did I turn my camera purple for the Weev colours? I didn't, but
marketing department is going to be very happy with you, Thomas. You were talking about a nice background and you changed the whole thing purple before the call, so we're all good.
Yeah.
Folks, thank you very much for your time this evening and for your participation with the polls, with the questions, and just staying throughout the whole call. It's not, it's nice to see such engagement, but we want to see more of those new EV drivers coming along. We've hit the curve of early adopters into the mass market, and we want to make sure everybody is educated, understands the benefits, but also kind of educate everybody else as well as to the right things to do with regards to how to charge, where to charge with your electric vehicle. Thanks to my fellow committee members for arranging this. Thanks to Mark and Darren, Rachel, Mark, the other Mark, and David, etc. Have a great evening, everybody. We're going to stop the recording now. And as I said, this recording will be available across our socials once we slice and dice it over the coming days, top and tail it. Thank you, everybody, and have a great evening.